All right. Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is PC, and today on Gamers Passion, we're gonna take a rest from the SNK and Neo Geo front, and we're gonna go in a different direction. Today, we're gonna talk about the big N, the big enchilada, the rescuers. I call them the White Knights, who rescue the gaming industry from that fucking Atari. Uh, Fuck Atari, and you know what I mean. Whatever to them. If you like them and I offend you, fuck it. You're a loser for liking Atari. Beeps and bloops.
Jesus.
Beeps and bloops. Fuck it. Um, but yeah. So we have our returning host, Jared, aka SuperHighTechGamer. Say hello.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
All right, and we have Mr. SNK snkneogeoman himself, Sal. Say hello.
Hey, what's going on? Fuck Atari.
Fuck Atari. And today's guest is actually pretty cool. We have actually Jared's brother, older brother. So go ahead and say hello.
Hello, you can call me Brett. You can call me Bulbous Brett. Side story, Atari, yeah. Fuck them.
Yes.
No, hey.
Thank you.
Jared, hey. Remember when I gutted that Atari 2600 for parts to fix my Sega Master System? That's what I felt about that damn thing. Yep.
Atari fucking sucks.
Definitely.
So basically today, since Brett is a huge fan of Nintendo, and I think we all are. Today we're going to talk about the Big N, and basically from the gaming past all the way up into the present, because there's kind of a trend right now of, especially with the new consoles and stuff coming out, PS4 and Xbox One. I've seen on a lot of YouTube videos and YouTube channels, there's a lot of people bashing Nintendo, and I think that if Nintendo was to follow the same steps as the other two guys, I think gaming would be very boring. I always like the underdog, and that's what Nintendo seems to be right now. Even though they just won the last console generation, that's pretty weird, right? So we're gonna start off with our guests, and just kind of tell the people some of your gaming history, growing up with Jared over here. So
Who
Brett,
just seemed to know it? He's having connection problems for some reason. And I told him, I was over to his house last night too, and I work in the telecom industry, and I had a new broadband router for him, but he's kind of like me. He was like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah,
But something's going on at his house tonight. So I guess if you want, we could start with me.
yeah, go on, Brett.
Go ahead.
Okay, so here. Long story short, I am Super High Tech's older brother. From the same mom, though. If you want to get that out the way, we've more or less both grown up. I've been gaming since, and I'm going to show my age here. It's probably about 1977, 1978. Yes, I am that old. I remember back when you could walk into a Sears store and walk into like, let's say the like the menswear section. And it's like, oh look, there's a Star Castle, or there's a Space Invaders arcade. I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. Now. And let's see, first home console was unfortunately, the Atari 2600. As a matter of fact, we had somewhat strict parents, so we didn't get the 2600 in like its heyday. We got it right as it was in like the bargain bin. I mean, we were purchasing games in, I believe it's either KB. KB Toys for like 99 cents, brand new shrink wrap. It's like, wow. So we loaded up on games. So
Okay.
played 2600, and it's like, well, cool. Yeah, this thing sucks, but what else do we have? And yeah, around about 1985 or so. Yeah, we're reading around. I'm like, oh wow, know it? Hey, the people who make, yeah, like Donkey Kong and Hogan's Alley and Mario Brothers. Hey, they're coming out with a home console. I'm like, oh, happy, joy, fun.
Yeah.
So after begging and pleading our dad, we lived with our dad at the time. Our parents weren't together, and our dad's kind of old school. So he was like, "Man, you ain't getting that nonsense." So then I was like, "Well, know what? I'm hell bent and and determined to get this thing." So I was plotting, getting a job, washing cars, selling papers,
Doing whatever.
mowing lawns. But then, up in one day, our father takes us to. It was a store called the Federated Group, way back in the day, in a part of town called National City. So he walks us toward the pile, and there goes Mr. Super High Tech again. So he walks us toward the pile of NES deluxe sets, and he just turns around and says, "Know it? I want to see your grades go down. I want to see housework not getting done." And he rattled off like 5 or 6 things. I'm like, okay. So he picked it up, put it on the counter, paid the man, and we walked out with it.
Nice.
So that's pretty much where my first experience with a Nintendo home console, started. Came with Gyromite and Duck Hunt, which Rob the Robot probably lasted about a week, and he was pretty much back in the box. I'm like, okay, fuck this thing. I understood why they did it, because they were scared to bring out a pure play game, system.
Yeah.
They had to have something on the side so they could call it, oh, well, see, this is interactive. And it's like, well, okay, that's nice, but I'm not here for that. Heck, I'm here for games. So,
Okay.
we had that. The first two, packing games, and the only other 2 games we had at launch were Kung Fu, a.k.a. Kung Fu Master, a.k.a. Spartan X, and a very unknown game called Gumshoe, which is like a combination. It's a light gun game, but it's a platformer too. And just Google it, because it's a unique game, to say the least.
One thing I just dropped out, but I was just kind of got your conversation there, Brett. Yeah, there one thing that was cool about the Nintendo system is that we were able to play those games in the arcade, because we had the Play Choice 10, which allowed you to sample the games that were coming out on the upcoming NES, and then they had the Versus Una system that was made by Nintendo, and so you could play Hogan's Alley, you could play these games in the arcade. I just remembered that too. So.
Okay. Well, Brett, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Since Nintendo is your favorite company, and basically your reason for gaming, on the NES, what are some games that really stood out for you, that you have to say is probably like your top 5 games? And I'll go in order with Sal, and then we'll go with Jared. But I'll start with you, Brett.
Okay, cool. Well, in no necessary order, if I have to name off my 5 favorite games, okay, number 1, and again, I'm sorry, I just said number 1 when I said I'm not even going to number them. Capcom's Bionic Commando, just right out of the gate.
Okay.
And, not just because of you don't jump in this game, where, like every other platform at that time, it was basically, jump and fire. Well, this you didn't jump. Well, again, Google it. Have to give props to Super Mario Brothers 3. Probably still, in terms of platformers, one of my top 5 favorite, platformers in any generation. I know I'm going to throw Jared for a loop. My first real experience with a somewhat hardcore role-playing game, Ultima Exodus.
Great pick. That's a great pick.
Yeah, because you really had to sit down and sleep, eat, and breathe that game. It wasn't that popular, so there weren't like a whole lot of tip guides, and obviously, back then, like, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have, the internet in general. So I think I played through that game like 3 times, and each time it was just so. Oh, well, now that I just kept improving the outcome.
That was a very hardcore RPG, dude. I mean, it was like, because Ultima, that originated on the PC. It originated on the Commodore and like the old style computers. So it was this really old style RPG, really hardcore, very, the essence of a hardcore RPG is like basically back then. But yeah, they did port it to the NES, so yeah, it was great.
Not a bad port in itself. Yeah, people say, oh, well, it doesn't have the good graphics. Well, hard order was kind of limited, back then. If I have to pick 2 more games, and I know it's gonna sound cliche, but come on, man, heck, The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
How can you go wrong? In fact, that just became available. Doggone it, Jared, dropped again. As a matter of fact, it just became available on a Wii U eShop. And matter of fact, both that and I just saw an ad today saying that, and I know that Jared's gonna like this, that Zelda 2 Adventure Link is gonna be coming out sometime next week too. But unfortunately, that one isn't in my top 5.
Yeah.
If I have to name off one more game, and yeah, I'm sorry if you're a fan of sports games. I'm sorry, I'm not going to say Tecmo Bowl because I know it. Fun game, but not something that I would want to be stuck on a desert island with for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Now, my last game, and I'm gonna go, and it's kind of a cross-up between 2. And no, I'm gonna go ahead and name both of these tie. One, Sunsoft's Blaster Master, which if you've ever played that game, I cannot believe that game is not either password or battery backup, because a sit through playing from point A to point Z of that game, that's about an 8-hour effing affair.
Wow.
I've actually started to play that game, paused, went to work, came back, played, went to bed, woke up, and then finished it. I'm like, this game is stupid. Well, no, I mean, not stupid, but, stupid long.
Yeah.
The other game, Ninja Gaiden.
Nice.
1. Not 2, not 3, 1. And the reason why, even though 2 and 3, from a technical standpoint, were better games, I think it's just, part 1, the novelty was like having like those like the hand-drawn cinemas. That's pretty much the first time I had seen that on a NES game. So, and like the constantly changing storyline, and people who you think are there to help you, they're actually trying to kill you. Yeah, nice game. So yeah, so those I guess is my top 6. But yeah, so that's mine.
Okay. All right. Sal, what's your take on the subject, man?
Well, the thing is that Nintendo being my first real console, and basically what really got me into gaming or my passion for it. But a lot of the games I would have probably, sound off or like it had cliche. But I mean, there's such an important role in not only in my gaming life, but I think a lot of people. First one is definitely going to be fucking Super Mario. I don't give a shit. It's the most cliche sound, but it was the first console game I actually played that I got into, beat by myself and all. And it was like a spiritual fucking awakening. And I enjoyed it because it was just so different. And because I never liked what I saw in the arcade, like the what do you call it, like that Pac-Man and all that shit. I wasn't into that type of gaming. It just never attracted me. But like Super Mario and all that type of thing attracted me because, just the whole design, the leveling, the changes, it really changed my thinking of way of console gaming. Next one, it's going to be hard. Will probably be Castlevania.
Okay.
Oh,
and
good game.
In other words, and the reason why I'm saying Castlevania, I think that was probably like one of the, second or third game or something I got, and I just bought it based upon the fucking cover. And the thing is, I was like, oh, that looks pretty fucking cool. When I got it home and playing that shit, oh my god, that was another game changer. Because just as I thought, Super Mario was cool, it's all cutesy to fuck up and shit, but you're playing Castlevania, which is a more dark and grimy type of atmosphere, and playing that and all, I was addicted. I couldn't believe that, that horror type of game, because I like that type of stuff when I was a kid. I don't really give a shit about it now. But that was another game changer, seeing something like that. Probably the third one is probably going to be Mega Man 2.
Nice.
Mega Man 2 is, because, again, it had the elements of Mario and a Castlevania, but not as cutesy as Mario, but not as grimy as Castlevania. And the bosses, not the fact, the element of actually being able to defeat a boss and actually take his weapon, I thought was unique, and I thought that was pretty ingenious on Capcom's part. And what I liked is that not so much when you're facing off against the regular robots, is when you leave the robots and moved on to Dr. Wily's castle, and you were facing off these humongous ass bosses like the dragon and things like that, and it became more and more intense. And just the graphics on a lot of the bosses, and the whole entire theme, and the way you can change up your weapons and energy bands and be able to save them towards bosses, and using a lot of strategy really intrigued me. Next one's probably going to be kind of like what Brett said. It's kind of like a tie between Ninja Gaiden 1 and Ninja Gaiden 2. It's kind of like, because once again, it still falls in with the platformer genre, and it was another thing, because what little kid in the 80s ain't like fucking ninjas? I mean, so that in itself was cool, because I played like Wrath of the Black Mana, but to me that game sucked. But when I played Gaiden, I was hooked, because it was very fast moving. It flowed well. The ability to bounce off the walls was really. It was just really cool. It just had a lot of technical aspects to it, but it had the same frustration as the previous games I mentioned and all. I'd say the other one is kind of tough. I don't know if I can go with the cliche, Super Mario 3, like Brett said, because that's an excellent game too. Because the whole movie The Wizard hyped that fucking game. That was like a big Nintendo commercial. But the only other game I can really say that I thought was really unique and really fell into it, I'm probably going to go off, is probably Batman.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I like Batman because that game, I saw it at some dude's house. I was visiting some whatever. I saw that shit. I was like, what the fuck? I looked at it. I was like, I couldn't believe it, because once again, it was a platformer, and it was very much like Ninja Gaiden, bouncing off the walls in order to scale them. And I was like, and using the batarangs with this, I was like, oh my god. I was like, why do I not have this game? And so it's like one of those games you pester the shit out of your parents for again. But I think like those games, I mean, and they're all action platformers because I tried to get into the RPG thing. That is just not my style. I like fast moving action, that type of thing. I tried to get into Legends. I was like, nah, this shit ain't happening. I have nothing against it, but it's just not, RPGs is just not me. But those are the games to me that really kind of like changed my way and thinking and platforming and just loving games and content, because each one of those games, even though they have very similar elements, they're different. And that's what made me actually really like gaming, because it wasn't the same thing over and over as you saw in the arcades, where it was basically the same thing, like Pac-Man, this Pac-Man, this that. These were games that were in that platform genre, but they were different. There was strategy, there was timing, there was climbing, there was a lot of things you can do, and it really made and it challenged you. And they took forever to beat too. I mean, you weren't beating these shits in like a couple of days. Some of these games took me months. Some of them actually almost took me a year to beat.
Yeah.
That's how tough they were. So that's why I liked it, the frustration and the patience I had at the time. But I don't have that patience now. I could not sit there for hours and hours, sitting in front of the TV. It's just not there anymore. But it's just the enjoyment and the satisfaction of completing the boss, especially Castlevania. I couldn't get past the Grim Reaper for like the longest time. And so I figured that shit out. But it was just really fun, and it really got me into gaming. And that's pretty much, I would say, it's my best.
Okay.
Or my top 5 or whatever.
Yeah, that is an excellent selection of games.
Yeah, classic choices, man. Jared, are you there?
Yeah, I keep jumping in and out. It seems like I'm having problems with my connection, so I'm going to go real quick.
Yeah.
I agree with Sal. Castlevania, me and Brett had that game. It just was awesome. It was the arcade experience at home. If you played the original one, it was really great atmosphere, really great music. Same thing, Bionic Commando, made by Capcom. That was a really great, excellent platforming game with the hook and also all the various elements. Just made that game great storyline, awesome climactic storyline. Then I'll go with Mega Man 2, which my brother had as well. I came home from summer vacation. He had Mega Man 2. I couldn't believe the graphics, the sprites, the colors in that game was just awesome. And it still sticks out. Contra, that game was amazingly great.
Oh, yeah, how can we all forget Contra?
Yeah,
God.
Yeah, 2 players. It retained all the qualities of the arcade game, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe there was a kid at my junior high school who had it, and he was like, I got Contra. I was like, bullshit. And he's like, yeah, I got it. And he's all, you want to borrow it? I'm like, hell yeah. And so I took it home, and me and my brother played that game endlessly. It was awesome. Then I've had a tie, because I have 2 games written down. Ninja Gaiden, made by Tecmo. Even to this day, Ninja Gaiden, come on, dude, they're still making that game. The original one with its the cutscenes, the great cinematics, and just the sense of like having a storyline, the scrolling, and the music was excellent. That was great. And then I'm going to tie it with Konami's Life Force, which was a 2-player. It was basically Salamander, the Japanese version Salamander, but great 2-player shooting game that had horizontal and vertical shooting. So I'm just gonna say quickly with that before I drop out. So
Okay.
I'll be dropping in and out. It seems like so I'm gonna say quick.
All right, that's cool. All right, I think so I guess it's my turn. Number 5 for me would have to be Baseball Stars from SNK. Now, I believe that was like the first NES game to have a battery in it, so you can save your team rosters.
Nice.
And I can remember.
Save stats,
Yeah, and I can remember, really young, just playing that game with my uncle and him just fucking me up in that game, and just like those frustration memories, but they were good memories because I used to talk shit to him for a kid, talking shit to his uncle, and stuff like that. And number 4 would probably have to be Castlevania 1. Just seeing that game, and I was really into Dracula and vampires and all that stuff too, back when I was a kid. Number 3 will probably have to be Super Mario Brothers 3. I hated Super Mario Brothers 2. I didn't feel like that was a real Mario game.
Oh no.
And come to find out, it wasn't. It was actually based off of another game called Doki Doki Panic.
No, it is so funny that you bring that up.
Yeah, that game sucks to me.
Yeah, because me and Super High Tech were just talking about this like 2 days ago.
Sorry, Jose, I love that game.
Oh, you do? I'm sorry, man. I hate it, man.
I more or less said the same thing. It's an excellent game, excellent, graphics, tight gameplay, fun game, not a real Mario game.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, he what? I mean, you can like pull up like turnips and shit like that, and that game sucks, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That game. Okay, no, hold on. I mean, coming off of Super Mario Brothers 1, right? The classic game and all that, and then you got Super Mario Brothers 3, which improved on everything in 1. Then you got Super Mario Brothers 2. It's like the shitty cousin that that you don't want to fucking talk to in the family. You know what I mean? Like the one that's on heroin.
That's harsh.
Like I want nothing to do with that game. That game fucking sucks.
Yeah. Well, as a lot of people know, and yeah, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on it. The main reason why we got that game instead of the actual Japanese Super Mario Brothers 2 was the big wigs, at a Nintendo company limited in Japan. They were like, well, know what? We do have this game, but we think it's the graphics weren't really that improved over 1.
Yeah.
And here in the States, whenever there's a sequel, you have to have better graphics. And 2, they actually thought that, maybe this game is a little bit too difficult for the American gamer with, like, the poison mushrooms and the warps that actually take you backwards. Because, yeah, we eventually, got the game as, Super Mario Brothers The Lost Levels, which came out on, both the SNES and more recently that
Super Mario Bros. All-Stars,
I
right?
believe the 25th year anniversary that came out on the Wii.
Yeah.
So we eventually got the game, but yeah, there were forces in play. I would have rather got the Japanese one, and then still got Doki Doki Panic, which actually in the retrospect, and even Super High Tech even knows this. They actually re-released our Super Mario Brothers 2 in Japan as something called Super Mario USA.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now, see, that's the thing. Now, my thing is like Jose. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. But like when I first saw Mario 2 on the Nintendo, I thought it was like a great refresh of the Mario franchise. I didn't think of it that way. I think that the marketing guys kind of hit the nail on the head for me. I was like, yes, it's like just something totally different because it was totally redone graphics, the sprites, but it was still fun to play, like for me. But yeah, it's not a true legacy Super Mario Brothers game, if we go back in retrospective. But I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was great, you know, and it just seemed to fit. It kind of just fit, like, to me. And then, like, when we look back and we see the history, it's like, oh man, they just put some what they did, redrew the sprites.
They just slapped some
game that we never. Yeah, it was like exactly. So I was like, oh, this isn't really truly in the legacy. But the original Super Mario Brothers 2 is a very difficult. You talk about Adderall. Needing some Adderall, Sal? Yeah. You will for that game, because that game is hard, man.
That's
very
like
tough.
Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, that game is difficult.
I beat it. It took me some time to get through. It was a tough game, I ain't going to lie. I mean, one thing I kind of liked was the switching off between all the different characters and shit. I thought was kind of cool, but that's really about it to it. But I'm kind of more into kind of like with Jose when alive. That like I didn't consider it a true sequel, but I did like aspects of it. But to me, the only one who actually came along was Super Mario 3, which fucking nuked it. Both games.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just. But it did have some decent aspects to it. But unfortunately, you could tell it was out of place. It was just doesn't belong there. And I think throwing it together was kind of Nintendo's. I mean, but it was an okay game. I'm not saying it's total garbage, but you could tell it was just out of place. And that was it.
All right. Well, number 2 for me will be probably have to be Ninja Gaiden, just because I can remember the first time I seen that intro and that cinematic of Ryo's father doing the whole duel in the air, and I mean that shit blew my mind as a kid. I can't remember seeing anything else like that. And then that was probably like the first. That was the first time I think I ever got my ass really kicked in a video game, playing single player. Just because I mean that game was so difficult. Because I don't know if you guys remember, but when Ryu would latch onto walls and signs, like he didn't latch all the time. And yeah, that was fucked up. And the bats in that game are some bullshit. Some bullshit.
All the enemies in that game were bullshit.
I mean, bullshit. And then I guess number 1, I mean, it has to be, is the first NES game I ever played was Mega Man 2. Just because I can remember the soundtrack has one of the best soundtracks ever in a video game, I think. I mean, I have that on my iPod right now. And I mean, just the whole thing of beating one boss and then beating the other boss with the boss's weakness, and finding out the patterns and all that stuff, and just the graphics. And back then, I mean, Capcom was the shit back then. And just an honorable mention, I guess for number 6 would have to be DuckTales. I love that game.
Yeah.
I love that game.
Yeah, that's excellent game. Hey, PC, I got a quick question for
Yeah.
you. So the first NES game that you played was actually Mega Man 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so upon playing that, because both me and Super High Tech, we were like, oh shit, maybe we should have picked up Mega Man 1 after all.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that we did after, thoroughly, going through part 2, because, admittedly, we didn't buy 1 because the box art sucked. So we were like, fuck that damn game. So after playing through part 2, we were like, fuck this. Hey, we need to find part 1. And we did find part 1. And I'm like, dude, part 1 is even part 1 is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, man. Why didn't we? And then it's like, oh yeah, because the box art. That's why we didn't buy it.
Yeah. I mean, back then a lot of NES games didn't have the best box art, especially with the Mega Man series. I mean, Mega Man 2 box art was fucking terrible. Mega Man, he was holding a pistol in that shit. You know what I mean? That's crazy.
That's true. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And part 3 was pretty bad also. But that's cool. So what we're gonna do now? We're gonna move on, to the 16-bit generation. I think this is where a lot of people have their most fondest memories of Nintendo, with Super Nintendo, and we'll just start it off. Just I guess say your piece about it, and then we'll kind of move on from generation to generation until we get to present day, where we can address some issues that I've been that seeing on the internet, and I know a lot of you guys have too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so so we can start off. I'll start off with Sal. How do you feel about the Super Nintendo, man? Some memories that you had with it.
I remember getting the Super Nintendo. I don't know exactly what I did, but I actually got off a guy when I was going like my first year in like high school. So I forget exactly what I traded and gave him. I don't recall that. But when I first got home, when I got the system, I got the system with all the hookups and shit, and I had Super Mario, and Super Mario World and Pilot Land. Now, when I got that shit home, I was like, I was expecting it to be good because I saw the commercials for it, and I had a Genesis too. And when I played it, I was blown away because I was blown away by the graphics were so much more colorful. The Mode 7 going on, that was impressive as fuck. And just the overall gameplay was just excellent. I just couldn't believe the leap forward. Like when I compared that to like the Genesis and all, I always liked Genesis, but I can see everything's so bright, so colorful, and that's where I can see the improvement. And then when I tried Pilot Wings, that's when I was just like, yo, this is a really great system. Because playing that, I mean, when I look back at it all, the graphics are shit now. But back then with the Mode 7, using the planes going through the rings and everything, it was so impressive. It was just, like I said, it was just, Nintendo was doing their thing. And because to go from the regular Nintendo, to the Super Nintendo, to me it was revolutionary. Plus the controller was vastly different. I mean, not so much in the thing, but you had the shoulder buttons. And that was some new shit right there. And I was just impressed with everything that was going on with the system, and I just really enjoyed it. Now, as far as compared to the Genesis, some games better on one system than another, but I was completely impressed. And believe it or not, that was probably the last time I was impressed with an actual Nintendo console. I mean, it might sound whatever, but the games on it were phenomenal. It really pushed the system, and you could see that it was just overall quality oozing out of that machine. And it just, I can't even begin to name the various games. There's just so many to just pop off. I mean,
yes, that does make sense because, I think the largest jump we've seen, even up to this very time, the largest jump in hardware power that I've seen is from 8-bit to 16-bit. I mean, just from what we were playing 8-bit until both, really all three, TurboGrafx 16, Super NES, and Mega Drive. It was like, dude, this is night and day. Hey, no, here, I'm going to drop off. Well, I'm not going to drop off. I'm going to mute you guys for just a minute. I just want to make sure that my daughter's not burned the house down.
Oh, that's fine, man.
Away at
no problem, man.
bridal shower, so I just want to make sure that SpongeBob is still keeping her occupied. So
Okay.
I'll be right back.
All right, man.
Okay, Brett.
All right. Jared, what about you, man? How did you feel about the Super Nintendo? Even I know, you're a Genesis man at heart.
Oh, yes, sir. You know what? I'll say it like now Brett's gone. Now, see, the thing is, since we grew up together, my brother brought home the Genesis. And but the day he brought home the Super Nintendo, because, I was younger than him, and he had a part-time job, so he was able to afford all this shit. So, he'd come home, and I would just walk in the door, and this dude, he would have the new system. So he'd have it hooked up, playing in the room, and I'd be like, I was just like the kid at the candy store, like, oh my God, I was just like, So the day he brought home the Super NES, and like Sal was talking about Pilot Wings, I think that was one of the first games he had. He had Pilot Wings, and he was showing me off the Boat 7, and he was using the jetpack, and he was going through these different areas, and I was just like, I kind of felt like a tinge of jealousy, It's kind of like when you have a kid, and then you have another child, and it's like the youngest, it's kind of like that jealousy kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, the Super Nintendo was really awesome. It's like, and you can't deny it. It's just like it really did. It really had impressive visuals and had very good colors. And I was just like, wow, this thing is really great. Super Mario World and like even the launch games like UN Squadron, all those games, they look excellent. And Final Fight, and just the way that they looked, they were really impressive.
Yeah.
And
now, so I'm back. Now,
cool.
Okay, so Super High Tech. Now, you do know though that there were, I mean, like those first launch games, they were great graphically, but the 800-pound gorilla in the room at the time was, hey, how come the final fight's not 2-player? Hey, how come UN Squadron is not 2-player? So
Exactly.
yeah. So those two games, I think they were kind of rushed because, of course, Final Fight 2 and 3, which some may argue that they weren't as complex, but no, play Final Fight 2, and I'm like, well, no, what? Oh no, actually, here it's it's not even my turn yet. So here, I digress.
Well, Brett, you're right. Like there are strengths and weaknesses about both systems because remember, they had released Final Fight. Now the thing I remember reading Electronic Gaming Monthly, and this was like a really heated kind of thing. This is like a big deal for gamers. It's like the Super Nintendo versus the Genesis, and like when I first saw the screenshots of the Super Nintendo, when they had shots of UN Squadron games made by Capcom and also Final Fight, I was just like, damn, this shit looks like the arcade. I don't understand how the Genesis couldn't compete with these type of graphics. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. I loved UN Squadron. I was playing that in the arcade, and then to see that on the Super Nintendo, I was like blown away, And the thing is that there were strengths and weaknesses about both systems, and so the answer to Final Fight, which on the Super Nintendo was 1-player, so the Sega Genesis, they bring out Streets of Rage, which was 2-player, so they capitalized on the 2-player, I guess you'd say 2-player cooperative mode, and then with the Super Nintendo, it looked like the arcade, but it lacked certain features in the arcade. So it was kind of like a give and take between the both systems. It's like one system could capitalize on one aspect, and the other system could capitalize on another aspect of the game. But that being said, I think that they both were awesome. I remember just being in awe watching like Castlevania 4 and seeing the Mode 7 effects and the awesome orchestrated music and all the great things. And this was like, wow, it was just awesome time. And I think both systems would try to do different things to one-up each other. So.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to put my 2 cents in on the subject, and we'll hit. I guess we'll hit the N64. But I'm just going to say, I was a Genesis man back during the Super Nintendo. I got into it pretty late. Actually, the first game I beat on the Super Nintendo was Star Fox. I loved it. But blast processing, that's all I got to say. Fuck the world. Fuck the world. Blast processing.
Oh, there you go.
So that's just my opinion. But all right. I guess we'll go on to the N64. For me, I did not really like the N64. I hated the controller. I really liked what Nintendo did, bringing analog sticks to the video game industry and Rumble. But besides that, I thought the N64 was a piece of shit, and I'm gonna stick by that to this day. I might get some hate for that, but I think the best thing that they did do was they taught the whole world about Mario 64, basically the 3D platformer. So I guess we'll start this one off with Jared.
Wow. Okay. My thing with the N64, I remember when it first came out, my whole impression of it was, back then I had a Sega Saturn, and that was the system I was rooting for. And then the Nintendo 64 was announced, and it was going to be cartridge-based.
Yeah.
It was going to be cartridge-based, but it had a very powerful 3D engine. And the thing about that was it created an advantage because one thing about when the Nintendo 64 came out, they brought out Mario 64. And Mario 64 was a technological marvel when it first came out. It was like no one had ever seen anything like that. No one had ever seen anything that fluid in a home console at that time. So when Mario 64 came out, despite being a cartridge-based game, it was very strong. It was not only was it a great game in itself, it was a very strong tech demo for Nintendo. So, I mean, that was great. I mean, that game stood up on its own. That Mario 64 sold Nintendo 64 machines just on that one game. So that was very powerful, and that was very made the N64 very successful. And it's just one of those things that really brought that machine into the spotlight. Now, as far as my criticisms of it, the only thing I will say is that it didn't have the arcade backing that I was used to, especially like certain games I was playing in the arcade. But it did, as far as its 3D engine, the CGI engine, it was very powerful, and that convinced a lot of people to purchase that machine. And so it did have a life. But I think my brother, he bought it. I remember that's where I first saw Mario 64, so I think he would have a lot more to say about it than I did. And I know he's very fond of it, but that's my impression of it. So
Okay.
I'll just leave it over to Brett and see what he says.
Okay, so my opinion of the N64, even in a generation where their system is, I wouldn't quite call it a flop, but didn't do as well as other systems that they made. That is still the generation that brought us WoW. Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Rare was really on their game then. Sleeper hit, Jet Force.
Jet Force Gemini.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Beautiful game. The only real arcade game on that system is probably one of my favorite arcade games of all time. Killer Instinct Gold. Jared knows at one point, I ate, breathed, and slept that damn game.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure. Yeah, the whole thing of them going with a cartridge. Yeah, I'm thinking that probably wasn't a good choice on their part. Yes, I like the fact that there were. There were no load times at all. Another thing too is that their games that they brought out, in Japan, that for some reason they just refused to bring out here. Toward the end of the, it's like one of the last things that I downloaded on Wii Virtual Console is a game called Sin and Punishment, which they did not release here. That game holds up today as an excellent game. Gameplay. And I'm sitting here like, wait, hold on. They brought this game out when? Why didn't they bring this out here?
Yeah.
Now, one thing about that, Jose, you made a video about that game, didn't you?
Yeah, it was the sequel for the Wii, Sin and Punishment Star Successor.
Which I have too, and it's also an excellent game.
It is. Yeah.
Treasure.
Yeah, Treasure.
Right? Yep. Exactly. Yeah. They made both that, and they made a game for the N64 called Mischief Makers, which is kind of like it's a platformer, but with kind of like Treasure's little quirky little things that they do with games. Good game. Actually rare. Actually, looking up on eBay, that game is worth well over a couple $100 at this point.
Wow, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
But that's pretty much all I really have to say now about the N64. At the point, I actually had all three major competing consoles. I mean, I had it. I fell in love with the Saturn after I bought the PlayStation 1 because, me not knowing, I basically thought that the PS1 was the bee's knees, and then I got a Saturn, and I'm like, hey, wait, their 2D games don't have. I mean, one, there's more frames of animation, and then but I'm not going to get into the whole Saturn thing. I'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what about Sal? What do you think about the N64?
Fuck Nintendo 64.
It wasn't that. I mean, yeah, man. I mean,
Fuck Nintendo 64. And the reason why I'm saying is just like Brett said, I mean, don't get me wrong, I seen Nintendo 64, emotional and everything. I mean, don't get me wrong, but even back then, polygons and stuff like that, to be honest with you, like, I could never get into the 3D anyway. But seeing the Nintendo 64, and I looked at the majority of games, I was like, all right, don't get me wrong, it's far superior as far as certain things compared to Super Nintendo. But to me, I thought Nintendo did a reverse and regress rather than progress, because a lot of the games and the stuff they were coming out with weren't the quality of what the Super Nintendo had on. I'm not saying to compare, it's like comparing apples and oranges, but as far as third-party development, the games, like Killer Instinct Gold. Okay, it's not a bad game, but it's not really as good as the arcade. It's certain things are a little off, and it's kind of gimped and downgraded. I mean, I just saw it as, okay, it was maybe like a stepping stone. Like, okay, I could see, okay, it was their first attempt at this, and that was about it. But to me, the majority of the games compared to the Saturn and the PlayStation 1, and I'm not a big advocate of the PlayStation 1 either. Don't get me wrong, I'm not thinking it's garbage, but I'm not the biggest fan. But compared to those two at the time, I'm sorry, Nintendo was just not holding it. And they were not putting out product, and the product that they were putting out. So I mean, there were a couple games, just like there's a couple games on it, but to me, I just thought the system was just shit. It was just like, I couldn't believe it, because I was comparing it from the Nintendo down to to the Super Nintendo, and seeing how much quality, and I was expecting a lot more. And to me, it didn't improve. To me, it's just a fucking failure.
yeah. Now, just some closing comments on the N64. I do think that what we got out of the N64 was once again analog and rumble, but I think it also showed the industry that Nintendo can basically run that shit by themselves, because the third party on there, pretty much all the good third parties really left and went to PlayStation, and I think it proved to them that it proved to everyone else that that Nintendo can basically handle that shit by themselves. Of course, with Rare. Which was a second party, I believe, at the time. But there are, to me, there's about 20 good games for the system. But besides that, not too much else. So that's just my thoughts on the N64. So I guess we'll move on to the GameCube, which was a pretty interesting time, I think, for Nintendo. And we'll start this one off with Brett. What do you think about the GameCube, man?
Okay, so GameCube. I think during about the middle of that gen, so we're talking what now? Xbox One. The first Xbox One, I should say.
Xbox, yeah.
Thank you. And PlayStation 2. I think this is where...
Hey, hold on. You got to include the Dreamcast. Everybody be stepping over the Dreamcast, man.
Yeah,
show some respect for that Dreamcast, man.
Hey, man, $99.99.
$99.99.
I had mine. So, okay, so all those consoles. I think this is where Nintendo finally figured out, okay, doesn't matter how powerful we make our hardware. I think some of the damage from all of their third-party devs, going over to PlayStation, that's one thing that kind of hurt the GameCube. the other thing is that, and here's where I believe a lot of the hate toward Nintendo started to form, because truth be told, and even if I tell people this to this day, people want to fight from a pure technical hardware standpoint. Outside of disk capacity, the GameCube is a more powerful system than PlayStation 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt. If you look at like the few same game titles that came out, like Resident Evil 4, Beautiful Joe. It's just clear. So, but people started to, and whenever you would see someone refer to Nintendo on a message board, the common word that you always saw, and it made me mad, was was the word kiddie, Kiddy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is for the kids. This is for the kids. I'm like, dude, there are more Rugrats and Wild Thornberry games on PlayStation 1 and 2, but you're gonna. So I think this is where Nintendo said, well, you know what? We can't bring out a system, on parity, just as powerful as those other guys, because people aren't going to care about that. That they don't care. So at that point, that's when they really started to, brainstorm the Wii, because they said, okay, graphics and sound, that's not going to get us anywhere anymore. So we have to do something totally out of part. Having said that, I thoroughly, enjoyed the GameCube. Like all Nintendo consoles, I got that bad boy on launch day with Luigi's Mansion, and I believe, I want to say, a Wave Race game.
Yeah.
And played those all night long. And in fact, the GameCube era is round about when I met my now wife. And in fact, she, I made her stay home because I believe I had ordered it from, GameStop or, EB Games. And I made her stay home to wait for the mailman because I lived in that same efficiency apartment, and I didn't want to wait till, you weren't home, so we're just going to try to deliver it in 2 days. Now, fuck that! I want to play my shit tonight.
Yeah, I understand.
So I got home. I saw the box, and just like every other, like every 5 or 6 years, I was like a kid on Christmas Day. But yeah, the game library, now that I think about it, not really the most memorable Nintendo game library, but yeah, I had fun.
Okay. All right. That's cool. All right, I'm gonna move on to Jared. What do you think about the GameCube, man?
You know what? To be honest, guys, I never really got that much into the GameCube. I remember Brett had it. Like anytime I go over to his pad, he had shown me GameCube games. But I don't know what the. I remember when my beloved Dreamcast had went away, and I was playing Phantasy Star Online. They had Phantasy Star Online for the not the Dreamcast, but for the GameCube. So that was like where all the diehard Fantasy Star Online gamers would go. They just go to the GameCube because they had the online service and everything. And I remember people playing that, but I don't remember a whole lot about the GameCube, especially. Only the games that Brett had showed me when I go over to his apartment, and he showed me some games, some gameplay. So I don't know very much about it. I remember playing the Legend of Zelda game, and I remember playing what the hell was it? A couple other GameCube games. I know they did bring out Ikaruga for the GameCube, which is a pretty rare game, but you can play Ikaruga on it. And so I don't really have that much experience with the GameCube as such. So I'll just say that.
All right, that's cool. Sal, what about you, man?
Fuck GameCube.
Whoa, man. Whoa, slow down, bro.
Fuck
Bro.
GameCube. Okay, let me get into that. Oh, now.
Yeah. Explain that one, man.
No, the reason why is that, okay, like you said, we're moving further. Okay, Nintendo, did their thing with the 64, and, people do have missteps and things like that. The whole cartridge thing, whatever. Now when, now you're moving forward because you have the Dreamcast, superior the Dreamcast at the time, even though it didn't last that long. And then now you're moving into PlayStation 2 and an Xbox, Xbox One or whatever you want to call it. To me, again, Nintendo regressed. I mean, don't get me wrong, there was a handful of good games in the system. But like I said, nothing really stood out. And they went into the little, what the hell the little discs called? I forget. They went into that type of technology. And rather than moving forward into, like, say, the DVD, and a lot of games needed so many damn discs to play, like certain games. Like certain games would be like 4 discs, or they'd be like 3 or 2 of those discs in order to operate because of the memory capacity on the disc. I mean, probably they did it because of piracy issues and things that plagued the Dreamcast and things of that nature. But the games that they have on there, though, to me, like, there's nothing on there that really stood out. I mean, you do have a handful of games, but again, they were regressing. There was nothing they were introducing that was so revolutionary or anything that would blow PlayStation 2 or even the hell the Dreamcast years prior out of the water. To me, it was another misstep. They probably wanted to try a new territory. I give them that. I give them credit for just making it a fucking cube. And I mean, it's good. But to be honest with you, there's nothing in that library that really stands out. Nothing innovative in my mind that really stands out. It's one of those concepts. Yeah, you heard a game. Yeah, okay, and then it just went away. It just, to me, I played it. It was all right, but it was just. There was nothing where I can say, oh, this was leaps and bounds, or this was so much significantly better than the Dreamcast or Xbox and the PS2. Absolutely not compared to all 3 of those systems. To me, it just was a failure compared to those 3. I mean, if it would have came out actually of the Nintendo 64 time, yeah, I think it would have been a hell of a hit. I think that system was, too little, too late.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, no, if I can add one more thing.
Yeah, go on,
the one redeeming thing that I can say is that I loved for non-fighting games, I loved the controller, and I especially loved the Wavebird.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it was like the first really good working wireless controller. And I don't know, what it is, but even with my somewhat large hands, it just fits. For some reason, it just felt, natural. I don't like the little teeny tiny, smaller than a Game Boy size cross key.
Yeah.
But I think whoever did the ergonomics on that, they should have gotten a bonus.
Yeah. Okay. My thoughts on the GameCube was I think the GameCube was when actually Nintendo took a lot of risk and probably was at their most unique time, I guess. Like they came out with a lot of new IPs in that era, like Pikmin 1 and 2. Um, I think they made a lot of unique games like Luigi's Mansion, and they had some good third party support like from Sega with like Billy Hatcher, and Sega actually helped work on uh, what's it called F-Zero GX,
Oh,
which
yeah,
was
that's an excellent game.
yeah, which is a really good game, and with the Metroid Prime series, I mean, taking their classic formula and giving it to retro studios, and they came out with probably the best game of that gen, maybe Metroid Prime, and see, my favorite Legend of Zelda game is actually the Wind Waker, and it's on it's on the GameCube, but I do have to agree with you, Brett. I love the Wave Bird. I thought that was probably the best controller, to come out during that gen. And one of the biggest things I really loved about the GameCube was the fact that you can have the Game Boy player.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and because I was a real big fan of the Game Boy Advance, and getting to play stuff like WarioWare, Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, and stuff like Advance Wars. I'm a real big Advance Wars fan. Playing that on my TV, I mean, was a really good system for me. So
Nice.
yeah, so yes, the GameCube was lacking as far as a lot of games, but you were saying that Resident Evil and Virtual and Beautiful Joe, uh, those were the superior versions on the GameCube. I mean, you can put them side to side with the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube, and I mean it's like night and day. There's a lot of screen tearing on the PS2, laggy controls, but on that GameCube it was a lot better, you know. So I guess we'll move on to the Wii. How do you guys feel about the Wii? We'll start this one off with Sal.
All right, now the Wii actually, I got to credit Nintendo. Whereas it's like I said, fuck them when the previous two. The Wii, I got to give it for the motion controls because at that time when it came out, that was revolutionary, and I think Nintendo used their heads, and they, even though technically it was really turned out to really be a gimmick for the system, but it was a flawlessly executed gimmick. Meaning that with the Wii Sports and the controls and the motion, I think they perfected it. I don't think, even to this day, nobody could get it right like they can.
Yeah.
I think that was truly innovative. It was Nintendo going back to their roots. And a lot of the games are in it, even though I didn't own a Wii, a lot of the games that were coming on there and all were focusing on that kind of that Nintendo, Super Nintendo era. And even though a lot of people kind of bought the Wii because it sold extremely well, and most of it sold because of the motion controls, because they were superior and they were flying off the shelf. But the problem is after that whole thing kind of like the novelty wall, then some games appealed to people, some didn't. But I think they truly went back to their roots with that system. And that's why, of course, it's the Wii U. So I actually kind of dig the Wii, even though technically, the PS3 was, or yeah, the PS3 and the Xbox 360 were out around that time, or just about there. You there?
Yeah.
I keep dropping off, guys. I'm very, very sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
But the thing is that but the thing is, I think the Wii goes back to their original roots, and that's something I actually really appreciated about Nintendo.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Brett, what do you think?
Okay, the Wii, actually, here, hold on.
for a second. My Skype is acting weird. It's like I got two Skype windows open, and I'm hearing everything twice. So here, let me straighten this out first. Okay, actually, no, I think I have it. Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, very well.
Yeah.
Okay, the Wii. Now, no surprise, I actually do. Yeah, it's now. Just from me saying this, a lot of people would say, "Boy, heck, he's a weird one." Yes, I am over 40 years old, and I actually loved the Wii. The only problem with that system was, all the shovelware, because anyone who had a faint idea of some game where you can wiggle and waggle stuff. Boom, there's a game out there. I'm like, wait a minute, how can they make a game off of grease? I'm like, what the fuck is this shit?
Yeah.
It's like that game. I'm sorry, that system. The Wii is the king of crapware. So I'm gonna get that out the way. Having said that, at the same time, let's go down this path too. So, I know a lot of people who bought the Wii. They never bought any one game. They just played Wii Sports the whole time, and it was it. What I tell people, though, you should still be thankful the Wii came out, because the Wii, for some people, was like a gateway drug. I felt it brought more people into gaming, which overall is good for gaming. I know you hear a lot of people talk about, the Wii is just for casual gamers. Well, a good portion of those casual gamers are on their way to hardcore. So you need systems like that to bring people into gaming, because, let's take a look. It's like, the Wii is doing so good. Microsoft said, let's come out with our own little, motion-based, deal with the Kinect. Sony just flat out copied it. They was like, it works for them. Fuck it.
Yeah.
That's true. Now, that is very true. Think about that, because because of the motion controls of the Wii and how explosively popular that was. I mean, I think we all know that. With your Kinect and with your with the Sony Move, definitely. Yeah, that's definitely a big fact.
But Nintendo was the only one to really, because those other two when it come out, but they were flawed. Nintendo, when it worked flawlessly, which is what people were surprised, even self-included, were surprised about, that they got it right.
That
itch.
I see both that, and they actually had the balls to bring it out, because they more or less bet the farm on on the Wii, and it actually paid off. In terms of games, I'll say this: if you ignored the Wii, you're missing out on a bunch of really good games. I mean, and going from the Operation Rainfall games, which admittedly, the reason why they exist is because Nintendo didn't want to bring those 3 games out. which is a shame. But I mean, you know, you know, the I'm sorry, the Mario Galaxy games.
Yeah, Galaxy. I mean, some other big Wii games are like the Donkey Kong Country, uh, the Mario Galaxy, like you said, the Metroid Prime, Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, um, the Trauma Team. I mean, it's so many of them, like that. So that's about it that I can think of. All right, everyone.
And at what point did I fall off?
You were just talking about the Galaxy series.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, what I was saying was, and I wish I could walk away from my desktop computer here because my Wii collection is pretty much like all of the must-have games. From like a Muramas, the Demon Blade, a Sin and Punishment Star Successor, Galaxy 1. Galaxy 2, I haven't gotten yet, and I have a feeling I'm going to want to buy that soon because, well, that's going to disappear off the shelves.
Yeah, you know what? It actually just got a price drop down to $29, so it's actually quite affordable right now. Yeah, so guys, we're having some technical difficulties right now. Sorry about that, but what we're gonna do, I guess we're just gonna wrap it up. I mean, some kind of interference is happening, but I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. We'll probably have Brett Lawrence back on, Jared's brother, but as of for right now, we'll just call this one a wrap. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. This one's basically, about our feelings about Nintendo, and I'm a big Nintendo fan. Always will be. I hope my kids get to play and have the same experiences that I had with the systems. So, long live Nintendo. This is PC, and I'm signing off.